Hi folks, I'm doing this on the Monday. It's near the end of, I can't remember what month we're in, I think it's February 2025. So someone asked me, and I was going to do it anyway, but someone asked me to do a chat about the Manchester protest, the UKIP one. Now, first of all, I put the videos in the wrong order, by the way, only because I knew this Manchester one probably would be the interesting one. I did go to the pro-Palestinian one before, and there was a sort of UKIP-esque protest. I think it was part of UKIP. I'll post that. It was Parents Against Groomers. That was just before the main UKIP one. Now, so I thought I'd just chat. First of all, before I go on to the protest, the pro-Palestinian was interesting because it didn't seem as busy as normal, and it felt they didn't seem to have that same energy as they normally do. It was odd because I haven't been for a few weeks. Perhaps it's because the war's over or whatnot. I don't know, but it didn't seem to. It seemed less people were there, but it could be my imagination again. Anyway. So let's talk about this UKIP protest. Now, first of all, hands up. I wasn't going to go originally. The only reason I came across it was somebody posted on on YouTube, and one of the comments said, "Oh, there's this UKIP thing. Now you have to film it." And my first reaction is, "No way, not my thing. Not going to." Then I thought, if there's a pro-Palestinian one, might be worth doing. 2 for 1, as I call it. Film one, then go to the other. But I did wear it because, to be honest, I thought, am I going to turn up and have a bunch of extremists give me grief? Because a lot of times you go to these things, the left will accuse me of being right wing, and the people on the right will accuse me of being left wing. You can never win. And so, just lost one of the dogs. Little madam, hang on. Come here! Come! Oh, you're there. Sorry, she had forward. She was behind a tree. Hope that didn't spike on the mic. But I then looked, and I noticed this UKIP leader was going. And I've seen 2 videos of his that the people have put out, maybe 3 actually. And it does come across as entertaining. And I thought, tech with it. Let's go. But I was a bit concerned, I have to admit. Now, when we got there, again, I'm jumping forward after the pro-Palestinian protest. We walk up to the main. It was supposed to start at 3, but they had, as I say, this like pre-1 at 2, which I wasn't aware of. This Parents Against Grooming. Oh, and by the way, there'd been you've probably seen it. Everyone's probably seen it. About 10 o'clock that day, a child had been killed on the roads. So the roads were closed down in between the protests. So hang on, let me just bring up his name because I've got it down. Hang on, hopefully I've got my mic in the hand, so hopefully it won't make too much noise. I'm also walking the dogs, by the way, I should have said that. So I don't know how well this mic will pick up the background noise. There's birds singing, but hang on. Right, Nick Tenconi. I probably pronounced it wrong. Nick Tenconi. It sounds slightly Italian, that, doesn't it? And so I thought, oh, let's go. So, as I say, so I'm losing track there. So we get there, and they're sort of setting up and doing speeches. The mic they've got, I think apparently it failed them, the system, so it was hard to hear. And it was quiet enough. And around 3, I said to the other 2, I said, look, I'm going to go nip down to, I think it was after 3, to be fair. I think it might have been 10 past or 15. I said, I'm going to go down and see, because there was the location was supposed to be Piccadilly Gardens for the UKIP one, and what is it? I think I'm probably got the name wrong. Is it St. Peter's Square or something for where we were? Something like that. Sounds a bit Russian, but anyway. So I set off, and as I say, the road was shut down, and I'm walking around. But then I saw a few people walking, and they had the England flags on them. So I presumed they were on. I actually just thought they were doing a march. I thought, oh, they've decided to do a march. What I think they were doing was moving from Piccadilly Gardens to the other spot, because apparently there was quite a few counter-protesters there. So they all meet up, and one of the things I noticed, again, these are just observations, I could be wrong on everything. These are just my opinions, by the way, nothing factual in many things I say. The group there, I'd say, weren't at all right wing. I'd say that everyone there were just the average person you'd meet every day. I mean, I'd hold my hands up to say zero right wing. They just felt like, average person. Now, again, the reason I say that was not one of them gave me grief, and I've had that before, as I say, you've seen it. When you get the troublemakers or the real extremists, they usually go, "Ooh, what you filming it for? Don't you dare, I'm coming after you." I had none of that. And in fact, if you notice on the videos, everyone's put out, I think there was only, 4 UK flags, so they weren't even heavily using the flags. So again, this is why my argument is they weren't in any way right wing. But then we had the counter protests come down. Now this was interesting. You might notice they didn't have the banners. Now normally on these things they have. It looks like I might be wrong, but it looks like a standardised banner that I think it's Just Stop Hate, or what they call themselves, who I think are, I don't think they're particularly nice people, to be honest. They claim to be on the side of good and whatnot, but to me they're just bullies and horrible people. Because to stop other people protesting is a bit fascist. So, you can't claim to be anti-fascist when you're stopping others. But anyway, now I didn't see a single one of that lot. No banners, which was interesting. Considering this is like your biggest protest I think you're going to have in the north of England, and they're usually at very small ones. I mean, normally, they'll go to literally anything where even one person's turning up. They'll go, somebody will make a tweet or something and organise it, and they'll hand out the banners. They won't even know what they're going to protest against. They just get told to turn up. Because you've seen it on the videos, I've recorded people stating that. None of that. So you didn't have the, the union people, and a lot of them, as I've said, they tend to be nasty and thuggish and vile people. You didn't have the real hard left wingers there, the ones that claim to be socialist but hate the working class. You didn't have any of that. You just had, what I'd say is, I've met most of them before. They're pretty decent, nice people. Some a bit hippie-ish. I mean, you could tell one or two had a drink. I mean, one had a can in the hand, and I suspect a few were smoking illegal drugs. Let's put it that way. But in general, this wasn't your sort of hate group that I've normally. When you go to some of these protests, there's all these thugs. I mean, it's like I was talking. You've heard me mention. There's this horrible group of nasty, the ones I've met are fascists, bullies, thugs, who get abusive, assault you, threaten you, all this. None of them were there. What you had was basically a nice bunch. And that's, that's very, that's important, folks. Now, the difference between the group on the UKIP and the anti-UKIP group, if I was going to be honest, sod all difference. The only difference really was age. which will probably upset everyone on it. But I don't think the impression I got was the UKIP lot was centrists, you know, and the anti-UKIP lot were centrists. And I'd imagine if you put them in a room, they'd probably all get on in reality. And in fact, when we was walking around the protest, it was quite hard to tell who was who. I kept walking, you know, at one point I was with the anti-UKIP lot, and the next minute I was with the UKIP lot, and I could not tell who was who. Again, the only difference I would argue is the age. The UKIP lot is slightly older than the anti-UKIP lot. Now, when it comes to the impression I get is this was about migration, or was it immigration? I get the two confused. You know, I'm not the brightest spark. But when it comes to this, it's not a left and right issue. It's a bit like Brexit. I mean, I've said I'd have stayed in, but, you know, people voted out. I go with the vote. But if you notice with Brexit, well, originally, if you look at the videos from the 80s, it used to be the socialists, the left, who was anti the EU, and the Conservatives who were pro, because the argument was from the left, they didn't like it because they wanted union control, and they wanted lots of workers having jobs, unnecessary. You know, I mean, back then you had people doing 2 or 3 people doing one person's job, blah blah blah. While the Conservative view was you had open the market forces. Now, come forward, I mean, that's what I've got the impression from watching a lot of videos from the 80s and 70s, etc., online. But then you come forward now, you have, again, we had a mix. So it wasn't necessarily the Conservatives who were all anti-EU and the left who were pro. If you actually look, I think even in Labour, some were pro, some were anti, and you got that in the Conservatives and all of them. I mean, even George Galloway, if I remember, I don't want to be, claim slander or anything, but I think he was actually on the come out, as in the Brexit side, which was interesting. So you had this split there of, it wasn't left versus right, it was a mix. And I think that's what you get with immigration or migration, whatever you want to call it. It's not necessarily the left are fully supportive and the right are fully against. You can see, if you listen, there's a lot of people on the left who are pro and a lot who are against. And same as on the right. And there's lots of, I think at least now people are discussing it rather than being told, oh, it's racist talk about. My personal view is, I don't know. I don't really take a side, it doesn't affect me. My own view is that if you commit a crime, out. That's it. Apart from that, I couldn't care less, to be honest. But that doesn't mean, that's for you to decide. And, I don't think anyone should be shouted at or insulted or silenced because they have one view or the other. I don't think, it's stupid to call people racist and all this because they have a certain view. It doesn't make sense. But again, you can listen. There's so many arguments to this. I think there was a Conservative the other day I was listening to, and this argument was he was pro-immigration or migration, forget, because the argument, and I think this has been quite a few MPs have this argument, is that and I've heard it quite a lot, whether it's true or not, is the argument is population's getting much older and there's fewer young people there, and they see it good because the argument being that they'll work and pay tax to fund the elderly, but of course the counter argument is presumably that they'll get older and who'll replace them and blah blah blah. But there's so many arguments pro and against. But I do think it's worth discussing rather than just screaming and shouting. And again, when it comes to protests, I've said I don't see the point of them. I think that group should have the both groups to me should have talked to each other, had a good debate rather than screaming and shouting. But anyway, as I say, the UKIP people, I would argue, were not right wing. So it was very unfair to call them fascists and all these names, Nazis. I don't think there was anyone their race. In fact, one of the interesting things was there was some who were. I saw some who had a lady who I presume was from Jamaican heritage at generations back, who came up to Nick and was hugging him and was on their side, on the UKIP side. So it becomes a sort of you lose that debate when it's you're calling people names. Now I'm not saying that some of the members of the UKIP aren't nasty people, but on that day I didn't see any. I didn't see anyone I could. I'd put hand on heart, zero nasty people. They all seemed very nice and very friendly. They just seemed like your average person you'd meet daily. But again, the ones who were, I mean, I sort of find it hard to call them the left wing because because I've met some of them and I don't think they're that particularly left wing. Some were just hippies. I mean, the only criticism I have for them is some took their dogs, and there's a nice one that you see running about, and it belongs to one of the girls. Met them before. I think they're probably slightly more. I mean, the funny thing is, I can't complain. I mean, you know what I mean? Because if you know me, you'd know I'm pretty much a hippie myself. I mean, if you think I'm joking, you ask Marta what I drive very hippie cars and stuff, and I have a pretty hip. I mean, I've said it, vegetarian, trying to be vegan, but I'm into the recycling and stuff. And the only thing I'm not into is drugs and drink. That's never appealed to me, that side of things. I'm a bit of a square when it comes to them things. But, I mean, I used to have the longest hair going. So, to me, you know what I mean, that bizarrely, they probably don't realise it. I'm probably, not that distance in views with them. But, again, I don't think they're particularly, I mean, I was probably, they weren't the sort of vicious left-wingers. They're the sort of nice lot. Now, yes, I'm going to say that there was some violence and some hoo-ha. But again, that just a little bit. But, as I say, my impression was this was two lots of people who probably had more in common than they realised. In fact, I think somebody said it on another video. Just chat, and you probably all got more in common. I think somebody on that they were stood, but I don't know if they were part of it on the anti-UKIP side, and they said it on someone else's video. Now, as I say, I think if you was actually to sit in a room, I suspect most would have pretty similar views. I think they probably have a shock how they are as distant, because again, I don't think the UKIP side, I'd say they felt pretty much, I mean, they probably do call themselves right-wing, but I doubt it, I'd argue they're not. And I suspect the ones on the anti-UKIP side probably call themselves left-wing, but I suspect they're not, or at least not that much, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I would argue that the ones who are on the anti-UKIP side will be the same people as on that UKIP side. I mean, there was nothing in it. But again, anyway, so my point being is that they shouldn't be calling each other names, because honestly I think they had more in common, and I couldn't tell who was who. It was the only reason I could tell was possibly some were younger than the others. That was it. But then we move on to, hang on, what's his name? Let me just bring it up. Sorry for the mic's bashing around there. Oh dear. Hang on, make sure it's starting to go dark. Hopefully you might have heard the birds singing. Now, Nick Tenkona, I probably pronounced it wrong. Now, I sussed out what he is. He's a comedian. He's an entertainer more than anything. Or at least that's my opinion, don't sue me. But it was the moment he picked up the mic and he mentioned, before we set off on the on the march, when he mentioned the speaker system not working, he were laughing, he were having a joke about it. And his face were lit up all the way through the protest or march or whatever you call it. I could see somebody having an enjoying time. It is just, it reminded me of a shock jock. Or, let me explain. When I was a kid, you've probably seen James Whale, but when I was younger, he was on Radio Air in Leeds, and he used to be the funniest guy going. People would phone in and he'd just insult them. Really insult them. I mean, there was an old woman who used to phone in every day, or almost every day, and she would be in hysterics with what he'd say to her. They'd just have this ding-dong all the time. He'd call her a fat, sweaty old bag and all sorts. I mean, really offensive. Really offensive. And she was in hysterics. And people would phone in, and they'd be fuming, and they'd be so... And he'd just call them names. And this was the show. It might not sound funny, but it was hysterical. And it was it's why I just didn't even care about school. I used to just listen to this till 1 a.m. when the show finished and go in late every day. I lost interest in school, to be honest. I can smell some burning, by the way. Someone's having a fire. I think it's the farmer. I can see smoke in his field. Don't know what he's burning. Now, a sort of now what I mean by him being an entertainer is, from the moment he started going round, I saw this guy's face light up, and he was enjoying himself. He was performing to an audience, and he's so fun, and he is funny. He can fire gags off. I was listening to him. His mind's faster than any comedian I've seen or heard. Now, a trick with a lot of comedians is they'll speak slowly and use a pause technique. I mean, in the old days, he used to have a cigar or something just to think of the line. He doesn't. He would just find it out, bum, 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 bum. And this was fascinating because everyone was his audience. It wasn't just the UKIP members. It was like when we got to, it was most obvious when we got to just where near Piccadilly Gardens, just where the police stopped everyone, and everyone stood for quite a few minutes, and everyone crowded him. Everyone was his audience, even the anti-UKIP lot. I saw something which was just a pure, someone was enjoying himself. Even when he was stopping and starting, I mean, from the moment we set off, you could see delight in his face, because this is his enjoyment. I'm sorry, might sound awful saying it like that. Is an entertainer, should I say, or at least in my opinion. It reminded me of Alex Stein in America. How Alex Stein will be very rude and push limits, especially with protesters. And that's what I could see this guy doing. Again, it's in my opinion. He has, the thing about Alex Stein and a few of the American ones especially is the part of the audience is the ones who are anti him, because they go along to get insulted and all this and to be shocked. But you can see there's part of them who are enjoying it. And I saw this on this protest, that there were people there surrounding him, shouting at him, and he was going up and giving them, he was firing out these gags at them. And rather than being angry and annoyed, they were actually laughing. And then, they were it was like, remind me of like a pantomime where you boo the bad person. Ooh, boo. That's what he's playing. It was it was less of a politician, I'd say, than, and again, I don't want to get sued, but to me, this is somebody who's an entertainer, and actually say to you, go along, this is a funny guy. And that's why, you might see me, I was just listening to him all the time, and I was watching the reaction from a lot of people, You know, the ones who would have normally, I think, got angry and so on. Now, there was one thing that I also noticed. If people had been generally angry, I think they could have attacked him and the group, the UKIP lot. There were plenty of police there, but I think they could have been overloaded, and they didn't. People are actually enjoying the conversation with him, the hoo-ha. Even the UKIP protesters, now not all of them did, because some I don't think could hear what he was going on about. And there was a few who were really angry and just well away from it, but there was a sense from them that as he kept going, I actually felt they were joining in this, how would I describe it? The entertainment, the pantomime. It wasn't your sort of, I suspect if it had been another politician, there'd have been a chance people had been throwing stuff at him. You know, I bet if that had been Nigel Farage, he'd have had stuff chucked at him. Booed, blah blah. People weren't doing that with this guy. They were actually part of the pantomime. And I thought it was quite interesting that it wasn't really a political thing. And I noticed some of the comments from Wikipedia, from apparently from, is it Hope Not Hate or whatever, quoting some of the things, and yet I could see what, the shock jock value. They were taking it literally. This guy's just literally just shock jocking it. I saw him do this to one of the young lads who were laughing his head off. I can't remember. I can't remember exactly. I won't repeat it because I couldn't do it justice. But the lad was laughing, and he actually said something that anyone else would have gone, ooh. And it wasn't. There wasn't this sort of weird, there wasn't this anger towards him. It was quite interesting how people were like crowded round to be entertained. They were enjoying it. People who went there were actually joining in. Now, yes, it did get silly, but again, the interesting thing was, and I think it was only at the end, I don't know what happened, somebody ran across and I think went after when the police or something. It was weird. They say he was trying to go for Nick, but I don't know. It was, I'm not sure he even spotted him. I'm not sure if it was going after Nick or what it was about. It was strange. But, well, there was this hoo-ha. Part of them, and I don't think they realised, they were part of the pantomime, part of the performance. And it was just one big performance, what I was seeing. But yeah, it was an interesting day, I must admit. But as I say, what was interesting was because there weren't the usual thugs there on the left, and again there weren't there were no one on the UKIP ones who had gone to cause trouble. So there wasn't that, because it could have escalated. Sometimes people hijack these things and go on one side or the other and cause aggro. There wasn't any of that. No one there went to cause aggro on the UKIP side. And on the anti-UKIP side, I think, to be honest, they were fairly mellow. I mean, of course it was 3 o'clock and I think people had got tired, and I think one or two had a few drinky poos, which hadn't helped. But the aggression there wasn't there that I saw. They were all shouting, but it didn't have that sort of... When I've been to some protests where they've had where it's been organised by the Just Stop Hate, normally what happens is you get a few who'll come up to you and say, you can't film, who are you, blah, blah, blah. None of that were there. None of that sort of aggression where people are running around saying, don't speak to him, oh, we don't want to have the media know anything, none of that was there. And it was quite telling, the difference. When you don't have that thuggish left-wing fascism. And I know one or two, I saw one lad I know from Leeds. I've seen him at Leeds Uni, and I think he probably classed himself as a communist, but I've chatted to him. I'd say now I don't think he's anywhere near. I think he just goes along. But there weren't the thuggish ones there. There were one or two idiots. But to be fair, when you're watching them, they're sort of, without that thuggish behaviour, the thugs from the left, that sort of anger didn't seem there. They were sort of chanting a few chants, but the enthusiasm and hatred didn't seem as much. And again, when it came to the end, it was still. I was walking in between. I didn't realise I was going in with the anti-UKIP lot because it was hard. It was again. I couldn't work out who was who. Never got any grief. None. I think my news now Yorkshire got spat on, but I think, to be honest, she might have had a drinky poos. She didn't. The picture I saw of her, she looked a bit wasted. But in fairness, it was interesting, and as I say, although I think they'd gone with the impression, because to be fair, hands up, I had the sort of that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, oh my God, are we going to be with a bunch of, extremists? But they weren't. And I think that was a thing. A lot of people there, I might be jumping in conclusions, but I think a lot, even the anti-UKIP lot, were sort of thinking, they're not actually right wing, And again, my view is stop shouting and calling each other and just chat. But yeah, as I say, it was interesting the Just Stop Hate placards weren't there. I mean, at one point, I was a bit annoyed when you see somebody ripping up the UK flag or whatever it was. Not because they're ripping that up, because it could have started a riot. But then I thought, afterwards, they're part of the pantomime, aren't they, folks? Part of it. Because, again, they were grinning. And it wasn't this sort of nasty left wing I've seen do stuff like this. They sort of, it was like as if they were taking part of the pantomime. I mean, it was really interesting. Subconsciously, everyone's part of this sort of pantomime. Rather than some sort of weird, some sort of angry protest. I mean, as I say, oops, hang on, sorry. Neither side made me feel threatened, and that's the first time that's ever happened for a long time. I mean, even in the pro-Palestinian protest before, we had a few try and intimidate you by taking your picture. Not that I care less, but in their minds, they think it's intimidating. And apparently, one person went up to try and chat, and they had the commandant run around and say, "Don't speak to him! Don't speak to him!" Didn't have that on this protest. I mean, I even had a girl come up to me and tell me her sexual fantasies about spitting on me or something weird. It happens a lot. When women see you as a sex object, what do you expect? People, a lot of blokes say to me, it must be great being, adored by a woman. I say, oh, it's just tiresome. But yeah. But even then, did you say she was having a laugh? I mean, she must have prepared that for ages. I mean, that was a funny thing. She'd clearly spent weeks, maybe months, getting herself ready to say that to see me. I mean, she had prepared that. There's no way she's come up with that off the cuff. That was pre-planned. That made me laugh completely. That's how obsessed she is with me. But you can't blame her. But as I say, the only criticism I have is don't take dogs on protest because it stresses them out. But yeah, if you see the dog on it, it's a nice dog, that. And I always think it's homeless because it's running about or got lost, but it's not. It just stays with her. I mean, I don't know if they're a couple. They seem alright. They're a nice bunch. I mean, I'm jumping to conclusions that a bit hippie-ish. But I don't know. But yeah, I just thought I'd chat about. There's something else I was going to mention. I've forgotten. Maybe I've covered it all. But yeah, in my mind, the funny thing was, without the vile, thuggish ones, the really nasty left wing, the ones that are real fascists. It wasn't the same aggression, I noticed. And I know people be going online saying, oh, the left, or the right, but I'll be honest, I don't think there was any difference between both the groups. And it almost made me giggle how similar they both were. And I don't think they realised that. There wasn't, anyway. I think I've covered it. If there was a bit more, I might add to it later. What's that? Is that a scribble? I think I heard a squirrel going up a tree then. But yeah. And I know right at the end, as I say, there was that weird fight. But I did wonder if the police hadn't been there, what would have happened. Because I don't think either side would have actually gotten a tiff, if I'm being honest. But it was a pantomime to me that day. As I say, I don't think either side were that political. I mean, if I was going to say anything, it feels like both sides have been abandoned. And that's what they had in common. I mean, to be fair to the ones that were anti-UKIP, I did think, who speaks for them? It's one thing to go along and have all these people use them, which, to me that's what they do, all this Just Stop Hate and all this. They just use people to go on the protest so they can make themselves money. But who actually speaks for them? Does Labour? Do the Conservatives? Who do they have to speak for them? I mean, to me the Green Party should be, but they've gone silly and gone on this weird extreme left-wing thing by the looks of things, and often talking nonsense, just trying to be another clone of Labour. To me, there isn't anyone, I don't think anyone speaks for me. And I think that's the trouble with the UKIP lot, and all the others. I don't think anyone really speaks for them. I'm not sure. And I don't think anyone's really been honest about the immigration, because if I'm being honest, I suspect it, there's been reports done and they're just not admitting to stuff. And, I've no problem whatever your views are. But there is one thing, though, I'd say, and this is the problem with not that I'm not having a go at the group who went on Saturday, but the fascist left, the ones that are really, scream and shout at everyone. And I know you're going to say, oh, but they were screaming and shouting, but it weren't the same. There weren't that enthusiasm. No one was really leading. They didn't really know what to do. They're almost, when I was watching them, it did feel like they were lost and they weren't sure to what to do, because they didn't have the Gestapo as they're normally there, commanding them to do things. It was all, they'd gone down, and then it was like, I think they were lost. I don't know. I honestly don't, folks. But as I say, you got to stop shouting abuse. I mean, this, to be honest, without that horrible left-wing nastiness, I think they had people there could have spoke to each other. I think a lot of that lot could have got on. As I say, the only difference I think was age. The anti-UKIP lot were just a bit young. Oh, sorry, I just fell there. The anti-UKIP lot were a bit younger. Some were students, some were, I think, just youngsters. And if you watch the videos, I don't think there were very many. I think I spotted one person who was over age of maybe 30 on that side. That was it. Now, normally what you have, And this is the difference. When you normally see these protest things where they're just up 8, most of them are quite, most of them are over 60. And a lot, as I say, it proved my point when I've always said that, when you see the union lot turn up, it was like that horrible man in Leeds who's this union guy, who's just big, horrible, sweaty, nasty man who had to go at Michael and says, "You're not welcomed here." And his wife told him to F off, told Michael to F off, the horrible, ugly woman. Horrible people. But the hate of them is untrue. And I've seen this. When you actually take away these, when you don't have these moronic fascists, the ones that are really claimed to be left-wing, the horrible fascist ones, you're actually left with nice people. Oh yeah, they were being a bit silly, and I know, but I don't think there was one person there who I wouldn't say was an okay person. On both sides, I don't think I could name a person there who wasn't a nice. Well, there's one person who's a bit of a twit. But actually, to be honest, I don't even dislike her. She's just a twit. On the she went on the she normally goes to the pro-Palestinian ones, and I actually don't even mind her. She's just a twit. You know what I mean? She just gets silly. And that's it. I couldn't really claim any of them. I would stand there and say I don't like any, because I think they're all nice. I think I could get on with. I don't think there was anyone there I wouldn't get on with. And I felt uncomfortable with and felt threatened. And that's different to the. You compare that to that horrible lot who claim to be anti-fascist, the football thugs ones. Horrible people who are full of hate. That's what I'm trying to point out. There is a difference. There are nice people who are left-wing. When you get rid of these horrible, nasty fascist ones who are there just to cause havoc, you're left with actually quite nice people. But yeah, again, why didn't they go just Stop Hate or whatever they call themselves? That's interesting, because I didn't see one of their banners there. And wouldn't you think this would be the main one they go to? And it's an interesting, I don't know. Because they all must have known about it. You can't tell me that, they know about every single micro protest, and the biggest one going in the north of England. Oh, sorry, hiccups there. Biggest one from north of England. They're certainly not going to know about, of course they do. But still, as I say, to me, I mean, by the way, the problem with UKIP and what is the other ones? The one that Farage runs, I forget. Reform, and there's probably others, as well as it's the trouble is when it's just splitting the vote. That's all they do. So it's possible Labour get in because everyone, even though they might only get a few votes, all the other votes are with every other person, and it gets anyway. I'm getting a bit tired now. Well, yeah, I think that Nick guy's damned entertaining, and the speed he can fire things out at is quite. I've not seen any comedian as quick as him. And I do think he generally enjoys the banter with people. Well, I'm 100% sure he does. This, and again, it's his audience. His audience isn't just the UKIP supporters, it's the ones who go to boo him. There's a genuine delight. I was watching his face, who was enjoying himself immensely. I mean, I've never seen anyone enjoy themselves and feel that confident. It was brilliant to see. Brilliantly entertaining. Well worth going, even if you disagree with everything he says. Go listen, it's fascinating to the speed. But yeah, as I say, it was an interesting day. And to me it was just a pantomime. He was a pantomime villain, and everyone else was the audience. And again, it just reminded me of, you know, shock jocks and, you know, like the Macon ones. It reminded me of the Macon ones where, like I say, Alex Stein's probably the closest I could think of as an example where he goes and, you know, he says the most outrageous things. Really does. And you do wonder how many, you know, even when people get angry with him, you sort of wonder if deep down, in fact I suspect they do, they enjoy it, part of the pantomime. Because life is, it lightens up the life. But still, I mean, I could be wrong in everything. But hey ho, I mean, no. But as I say, if you go to a protest, don't take dogs. It's too much stress for them. Some are okay, but I mean, if someone had kicked off, the dogs could have got injured or anything. It's not fair. But still, yeah. Well, we'll leave it there. I think I've said everything. I probably ranted on a bit. I mean, feel free to make comments and whatever. And as I say, I'm probably wrong on everything. But, you know, to be brief, I never felt like... The UKIP side did not feel at all right wing. It just felt like your average person you'd meet everywhere, you know. And the anti one didn't feel particularly left. I mean, yeah, there were a few. You had the few hippie types, which, you know, again, I sort of associate with, you know, rings through the nose and stuff. But if you dismiss about 5 of them, I think it'd have been who are a bit angry, who are seemingly leading everyone a bit. But even then, if you watch people, they just stood around, most of them. You know, it didn't feel like they were there as a threat, as if they were going to surge forward. I mean, even at the end of the day, I mean, you know, you know, when they were leaving, they just went, oh, it seemed to get to a certain point and everyone just started walking away and going, oh, that's it, we'll finish there. Which was the opportunity for them to all surge and have a ding-dong, but nah, they didn't feel like there was any aggression. That was the interesting thing. If you watch them, only 1 or 2 were a bit angry, but even then I'm not sure how angry they were. I'm not sure if they were just doing it part of the pantomime. It all felt like a pantomime to me. A comedy sketch, if anything. But anyway, we'll leave it there. Again, I probably upset everyone and offended everyone and got everything wrong, but hey ho. Yeah, I thought there was something else we were going to chat about, but anyway, we'll leave it there. Bye.